Hey everybody. So a long time ago when I was a kid, one type of games we played was the breakout games. Okay, so this is a very old example I found in YouTube, and I just want to show you. So it's really simple. We have this pad in the bottom, moving from side to side, throwing away this so-called ball. It's more like a pixel, and breaking these bricks one by one. So I wanted to show you how we can start and build a game like this inside of Unity. So we can use it to actually learn all kind of concepts about programming, things we already looked at, and see how they can actually been used when we're building a game. Okay, so let's start. So this is the basic gameplay. Let's see how we can do it, and we'll start by creating the pad and making it go from right to left or whatever. Just making it move around. So let's start. So I opened this project in Unity, just for the sake of this game. And here's the game window. In the game window, we can actually see the stage as it's shown by the camera. Here's the main camera. You can see it here, the hierarchy. Okay, and where I select it, you can see a small preview. You can see the icon. You can see it's focused exactly on the middle. And we want to create the pad that will go from right to left. Now, we've already seen in a previous video a bit about how to work with game objects in Unity, and I'll show you today how to create one that actually has a graphic. So if I want to create something that has a graphic here, I'll right click here, and there is all this option to create different types of objects. And for this we want 2D object, and we'll do a sprite. A sprite is basically an object that is basically graphic. So which kind of graphics we want? Let's start with square. So we have this square, okay, and we'll put it down here because we want it to be the pad. And let's make it a bit flatter, a bit wider, and not as high. So basically we have it here and we want to move it from side to side. And if I just press the play button, nothing much will happen, it will just stand there. Now, what do we actually have in this game object, which called here in the hierarchy square? So if we look in the inspector, we can see all the components that compose this object. So first of all, every object has the transform. Even if I select here the main camera in the hierarchy, we can see the inspector change, and we can see the main camera and has the transforms. The transform will show the position, the rotation, and the scale. And it has also another component here for the camera and the audio listener. Now, if we look on the square that we created, we see it also has the transform with the position, rotation, scale, but it has a sprite renderer. Sprite renderer is the component that enables us to show the pad. And it does that by using some kind of image, okay, which is the square here, an image or texture, and it has things like color and the flip XY and other things. But all these are things that define how this object, this sprite, is shown on screen. So so we have a way it looks, and it looks okay, but we want to start doing something like moving it around. First of all, let's understand what actually makes object in Unity move around. So if we look at this object, if we look at any object, we know we have the transform, and the transform has a position, has a rotation and scale. Let's try to change it a bit and see what happens. So if I just press here, you see I'll have a two-headed arrow, and just drag, you can see I am changing the X position. It also changes on screen. Okay, if I do the same for the Y, the same will happen here. If I'll do it for the Z, you won't really see it because we're looking at it in 2D, but it's actually kind of moving. I'll just put it on 0. Okay, so we can control the position. In 2D, we do Y and the X. That's what we'll do. There's also the rotation. We won't really use it, but I can do like, I think Z rotation is the best for 2D, sorry. And that's because the Z axis is going straight to us. And you might not understand exactly what it means, but basically it says that when we change the Z rotation, we change it around this axis. So in 2D, it just means it's change the position, the rotation on the screen. Okay, and there's also the scale. The scale here is the X size. We can make it smaller or bigger or smaller. We can change the Y, higher and lower, and we can change again. The Z wouldn't change anything. So let me just get back to this. Let's put this one on 2, this one on 0.5, and Let me just Ctrl-V for a couple of times, get back to here. Okay, so we have this object here, we can move it down here, and we want to actually change the position, and we want to do it from code so we can control it. Now this object at this point doesn't have a code, it doesn't have any script to run it. It has this transform that we saw it controls how this object is positioned and its size and everything, and the sprite renderer which controls how it is seen on screen. But we have nothing to control the logic. For us to control the logic, we have to use code like we learned in Code Wars. So code in Unity, we've already seen its component, which is a script. So I'll just call this pad, and I'll create a new script, and I'll also want this object to be called pad. I'll create a new script, call it pad, create an add, it added here. You can see it also here on the project window under assets. Okay, here we have the script. And let's change the name of this object also to pad. And now, the same way we change here the transform, we can actually do it from code. So if I'll double click it here and open it now this is in Rider actually, let's try something else. Okay, so I want to open the same file. I'll just go here for edit, preferences, and change it to work with the Microsoft Visual Studio so that you can all install when you install the Unity editor. And I'm using this one because not all of you probably got Rider, which also costs money. So let's go now with Microsoft Visual Studio. I'll close it and I'll double click the pad and expect it to open here. Don't save, sorry, this is all the work. And here we got the code. And let me just fix it so we'll see the whole window. And we got the code, we got the start function that happens in the first frame. We got the update that happens in every frame. So let's start with the start. So we have the transform, right? Transform object. Transform object is part of the game object, okay? And the transform has, as we've seen in Unity, it has three vectors. It has the position, the rotation, and scale. And for now, we'll handle the position. So let's just change the position to be equal to new vector 3, and let's just put 0, 0, 0. Okay, transform. That should be it, yeah. Okay, I'll just save it, go back to Unity, and run the code. Or basically run the game. So when we run it now, you can see that the pad will jump up here. Okay, because this position in the x0, y0, and z0. And this is nice, but we actually want to be able to move it, for example, using the keyboard. How would we do that? So what we really want for starter is if it's down here to actually make it move to the right or the left. So let's start by just moving it to the right. So we already talked in the previous video that in start this one is called just before any of the update method is called the first time. So it basically means once this object appears on screen for the first time, the first thing it does is run the code inside start. And then for each other frame that is on the screen, and we have about 30 frames per second or maybe 60, it calls the update. So what we'll do here will actually happen every frame. How can we use that to make it move? So we would expect something like, transform, maybe change the x or transform.x or transform.positionx, but we have to really, because we work with vector, we have to change the whole vector. So we will want something like this. Do this code right here on the update, but we want to use it to move our pad. So how can we do that? So let's start with something very simple. So we want to change the x here, right? How can we change the x? We can do something like this. We know that the position is a vector 3. So vector 3 pos, let's call it, is equal to transform.position. And let's do float next x is equal to pos.x. So this is actually the exact same x it was when we get inside this frame. So we get the transform.position and then the x. So at the start it will be 0, for example. And now we want to change it. So if we want to change it, we can just add something. For example, 0.05f. I put there for float value, and this thing will actually advance. So for example, if we had 0 at the beginning, on the next frame we'll get 0.05. And the next will be 0.01. So 0.1. And there 0.0.15. Now it might look like a really small change, but when it happened on every frame and it happened 30 times a second, then it moves quite a lot. And it will look really nice because it will move really smooth. So let's have a look. So if we go back to Unity and we run it, okay, so first of all it jumped right here to 0, 0, 0, but we see it doesn't really change. So let's have a look why. We'll go back to the code. Okay, because we still have this one, right? We haven't really changed here the x, so we have to use the next x we created. Okay, so if we just place it again in 0, 0, 0, it would move. So let's have a look, and we run here. So it's going to 0 and going to the right. Now there are a few things we can fix here, but let's start with it not moving all the way up. So have a look at let's have a look on the code and think how we can actually change that. So we see here we put the next x and it does move to the right, but if you look here we see we have 0 for the y and 0 for the z. 0 for the z is actually okay, but we want to keep it on the same level, okay, on the vertical axis. So we want the y to stay the same. Where can we get the same y? The same way we got the x. So we have the pos x, we can actually do here pos.y, and we can even do pos.z, which will keep the same position except the axis changes in this line. And if we go back to Unity and run it, we will just see it moving to the right. Okay, and this looks pretty good. So let's stop at this point. We'll get back to it in the next video. And the next video we'll show another improvements we can do. And for example, make it stop when it exits in the right side of the screen. So for now, if we just let it play, it go and burst all the way to the right and continue to work, because he doesn't care that we have here the right edge of the camera area. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.